Let's call the regular meeting of the Portola City Council to order. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Morton.
Here.
Mayor Powers.
Here.
Councilmember Murphy. Here. And Councilmember Pyler is absent.
Thank you. Item 2, public comments. This section of our agenda is for the public to speak on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Do we hear anyone in the audience with such a request? I see none. Okay, so we'll go on to item 3. This is discussion for city communications, city council communications, and committee reports. Let's start with Leah.
I attended the Yes for Measure E and F last night. It was very informative and entertaining. I went to the Plymouth Rural Electric annual meeting, the meeting before, and that was very informative as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Murphy.
I have nothing to report, but I have a comment.
Okay.
I want to keep it as constructive as I can keep it. So better keep that in mind. I've been on the council since April, and I think I've had an opportunity to get some feel of how things are going. And my comment is regarding the agendas and the information presented to the city council. I find that the agendas at the every 2-week meetings are pretty slim. And I would like to see more information being put on the agendas for discussion. I'd like to, there's just so many things I want to know about the city. I don't even know how many employees the city has. But I'd like a comprehensive report on fire and police, on the gravel grinder, not just how much we made in camping, but a report on how much they made, how many participants, just more detail. I'd like to see a work program. When we're out on the street and in the public, people ask us what's going on and what's being worked on. And I'm like, I think it's being worked on, I don't know. And they're wondering why some of the cosmetic things aren't being done, and I'm trying to tell them, well, they've got an issue with the water, but I really don't know what's happening with the water. I'd just like to see more thorough reports and discussion by the city council. I'd like to know what the building inspector is doing. How many building inspections do we have in a month? These are all items that when we get to the budget, again, that we need to know, so we know how much to budget or how much not to budget. So anyhow, my reason for bringing this up, I know we can't discuss it at this time, but I would like to see the mayor and the city manager, when they prepare next meeting agenda, put this topic on the agenda so the city council can have a discussion.
Okay, thank you.
And it would be on I would like to see it on the agenda for discussion and possible action, so we could give guidance.
Okay, good.
Can I get some clarification as to what it is that, do you mind following up with an email of all of those things? And are you maybe suggesting too for public works also to be at meetings for reports, or more information even outside of the meeting?
I think that is a topic for the discussion, because I don't know how the rest of the council members feel. I think what I'm requesting for the next meeting is
To have a discussion about what you talk.
that we have a discussion with the city manager and give him guidance on what we would like to see.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Pat?
Okay, well, as you know, we're starting our angel program, so I had a meeting on that. I went to the transportation meeting. Are you gonna report on that now?
Yeah.
Okay. I went to Bedford Fire meeting. Air quality meeting, which was not good news. Are you gonna report on that?
I can somewhat, yeah.
Okay. And then I went to the Yes on ENF forum. And also I went to a transportation meeting that they had over here about the Kromberg Highway and beyond, and they told us what was going to happen with 70, and it'll be 3 or 4 years before we see it come through here, but there's gonna be no cityscape or anything like some of the other places are getting, because they can't plow. Because they'd have to make things come out into the roadway, and they can't plow if they do that.
Yeah,
So my suggestion to them was, since we only have one stoplight in town there, I think they should put, those walk lights that you see like over in Reno that you can push. I think we should have one in the town and one at the other end of town for when people run across the street without having to walk all the way down.
When they're slushing, you can't even cross there though.
Yeah.
But they slush in Greenville, and they slush in Chester. But they got boots.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Pat, are they gonna limit us down to how many lanes there is in town?
I'm not sure, they talk about maybe not, but then they talk, well, if we do, the one lane will be wider, and I don't think they really know
They
yet.
don't know yet. Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you. I also attended the Transportation Commission meeting, and the follow-up meeting with Caltrans here in town. And my take on the same thing that Pat was just talking about was, we're still going to see some options, and they're going to come back in October and do another meeting in town, and hopefully with a better turnout, with better advertising than we had this time.
I was working, so I can't know.
Yeah, and then the Director of Public Works gave a report on which projects are being truncated around our area, all over the county, but the ones here, and which ones are falling behind. And the one county road that has a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit is on A23, and they are patching A23 for those of us headed to Truckee or beyond. And the idea is to have either chip seal or overlay, but I didn't know if they get to that this year. So, but it's still in the queue. I'm going to, I went to the S on ENF last night, and I also thought it was good, except for my part of it. Where I stood up with the microphone and couldn't remember which thing I was going to say. So I tried to say both at once, and my mind blew a fuse. I recovered ingraciously. So that's how that went. Tomorrow's the Tri-Counties meeting in Quincy, where we give away $125,000 or so. That's to people who serve underserved populations such as senior citizens, food bank, and so forth. I attended the Air Resources Quality Control Board get-together here at City Hall. When I walked into it, I had no idea there was going to be 11.
About
11
including
people.
the district employees.
Yeah, and I thought it was very interesting. And John may speak more to it, and you may speak more to it about some of the incentives part of the program that they were offering.
How did you find out about these?
Subterfuge. I channel John a lot,
I emailed John and then from there.
Yeah,
and schedule a meeting.
We could only have 2 council members.
yeah, on that particular one. So it was Essen. Seems like there's really on here. But I'll stop there. I did talk with our city manager yesterday. When I came in, I think, about a infrastructure meeting, setting up an infrastructure meeting, which will address some of the things that Mr. Murphy mentioned. So that's still in the works now too. So that's all I have on number 3 on our part. Any staff communications from Jason? No? And then Susan, you're up pretty soon.
We'll say it all then.
Okay,
Thank you, though.
you bet. And city,
Fire.
you have fire? Okay,
Okay, Beckworth Fire Department for the month of August had 41 calls within the city limits. 38 of those were medical and 3 were fire. In July, they had 45 medical and 4 fire.
okay, thank you for that. And no sheriff's report tonight. Air quality.
Overall, air quality has been good. We had 3 curtailment days in the beginning of the month, however, they were related to wildfires, no impacts. I'm not sure which one, but that's predominantly where that's from. We did meet CARB and EPA staff. Okay, they're supposed to come out annually, they haven't been out since before the pandemic. But this is our first trip back, and the plan for that was for them to, they technically are supposed to come every year. It's in their grant application to come out and assess the non-attainment area and the grant funds as they've been spent. So during that time, we had 1 fully packed day, but we met with installers, we met with chimney supervisors, we came here to city council or city hall. We had installers and chimney sweeps come to our office. It was a very busy day, but the key takeaways I think for them were that workforce development. So there are not a lot of either employers or employees within the established businesses doing the trades that our grant really could help pay to get projects done. So whether that's weatherization, the heat pumps, wood stoves, chimney sweeps, that's not to group them all up to say that they're all lacking, because some of them are thriving, we have a sufficient amount, but there are funds like weatherization and expanding on heat pumps that we could really, the grant could really pay for a couple of years to come. And then they really wanted to talk about the DOE funds coming down the pipe. There's just a lot of grant funds, like unprecedented amount of grant funds coming down that will go from federal to state to local agencies. So we don't necessarily have the bandwidth, but we could if we realized that there was a need and there was an avenue to spend the funds. You can get yourself in a pickle if you pick up a grant that you have no way of executing. So as far as the targeted airship grants we have, there's a huge gap in weatherization. They did kind of see the need for and seasoned wood. So those are 2 items that were just brainstorming, trying to figure out how we can potentially partner with suppliers. Or partner with weatherization companies that are licensed and contracted, to help people help solve the air pollution problem, and then also, provide local and support the local economy. So those are just some obstacles that we're experiencing. To fill you in, Jim, we did not, and Leanne, and I don't know if you guys picked up on this too, but December 2021, we were supposed to attain our moderate SIP, which is what the city ordinance 359 came into play to help curb, and help us achieve attainment for the national ambient air quality standards. We did not make that standard. We didn't get those emissions reductions in time. We didn't get the report on emissions until earlier this year, like January of this year. So now we go from moderate non-attainment into serious non-attainment. And unfortunately, that has contingency measures we have to come up with, that has control measures. So we're trying to come up with a plan legally, but legally we have to go through this plan. We have a SIP, it's due in June, and we have to come up with different ways that we can reach attainment that work with the community, but that also alarm everyone, the bell that we have a problem. We can't escape the problem. The EPA has this problem on their sites. So we have to come up with solutions. So if anyone has any ideas, any fire suppliers, I'd love to coordinate and work with kind of, anything. There's a lot of tools out there. So we're just trying to figure it out so we can avoid a lot of uncomfortable, potential rules that could come down to. Overall, it was a really good meeting. I think that it helped them to understand the area a little bit better. It helped them to see the topography. They're able to really discern now that Gray Eagle and Portola are not necessarily mirroring one another. Gray Eagle smoke impacts are not really affecting Portola. We have other data that supports that, but now they're able to see that there's just the topography is actually pretty substantial. They're lower, there's a mountain between us, it's different. So I don't mean to take up so much of your time, but that's sort of to just recap more about that meeting. Well, that's all I have. Oh, the residential greenways program, bins will be picked up by the end of October, so anybody who was getting a greenways voucher should break up their pine needles while they can, so.
I saw something a while back about, there was possibility of a grant for a chipper. So we could do greenways, is that still moving?
The hard thing is most of our greenways is pine needles and pine needles don't chip. So we met with IMD, that was one of the businesses we did meet with Carbon EPA, because, for them, a solution is like, oh, let's just have pine needles picked up, but it's like taken away, but away is a place and away is not a solution. So it was really beneficial for them to see 3 months worth of pine needles and how massive it was. So we're playing around with the idea of like maybe we can get a grant to get an air curtain incinerator to put on IMB plant, and they can just fill that. And that's supposed to be very low emitting for the pine needles up. The trick with that is getting one that's large enough. We have to permit it, and the trick about going into serious non-attainment is it gets a lot harder to get a Title V permit. So it's one of those things. It seems small, residential wood stoves, but the ripple effect is just worth observing for everyone who cares. Really.
Thank you. City manager.
Okay, a few things. We've been having our weekly meeting on Wednesdays with FEMA and OES to discuss all of the possible opportunities to get reimbursed for some of the damage that was done regarding the weather events that we had over the winter. Some of the frustration over making claims on some of the damages. This particular FEMA incident was not considered a snow event. So generally speaking, anything that was directly a result of snow being the culprit for damages, like plowing into something or if ruining a fence or rails or something, they're pretty certain that stuff won't be covered. In addition to the consequence that resulted from having to shut the water off because that was directly related to snow plowing that caused the issue. And that was one of the main reasons that the council at that time decided to say yes to the emergency declaration, because we foresaw a big problem, which was like clockwork. It's happened. We're still finishing up the last couple of leaks. Hopefully no more show up, but we're on the last 2 right now. So we have identified probably 60 grand worth of stuff that's most likely will get reimbursed for some other damages. We're working on probably wrapping up what we think we're going to be getting in the next a couple of weeks. Jason?
Yes.
Jason's been doing he's been spending a lot of time with jumping through the hoops of reporting this information to FEMA and getting it to them. Sowers Engineering, company that we use to do random items regarding our systems. They came out and sort of finished up, they will be finishing up GPS location of all of our valves, water systems, sewer systems, mostly water. We're identifying through GPS a more accurate way of identifying everything we have and where exactly everything is, to make it easier to fix the stuff that breaks in the winter after we plow off the ice and the snow out of the way. We may have to upgrade our subscription to our GPS software to make it more specific to match the GPS location, but anyway, that's underway, and that's a benefit to Public Works when we're trying to really isolate some of the problems. We had the air quality meeting roundtable here. Mickey pretty much summed that up. Actually, quite a few people from across the country. North Carolina was one guy, Brian, or no, Larry, Mark, yeah, from LA, Sacramento, San Francisco, and around. And I think it was good for them to come and actually see a realistic what reality is here with the behavior of folks that are used to cutting firewood and making that their way of life for the last decades, and trying to determine better ways to clean the air and better ways to possibly educate the folks here to maybe get upgrades for heat pump systems. It's all electric. We talked about the reality of, hey, you're going to be spending funds, help people who can't afford the electric bill, help pay an electric bill to help clean the air. So anyway, I think we had some pretty good conversation that made them possibly think a little bit differently, or
well, and it's interesting because they're trying to think of ways to help and incentivize, but that are sustainable over time. These grants expire, you subsidize, you can't get people on something that suddenly they can't afford when they're off, but I think that idea really stuck with them, and they're trying to figure out. They're getting more cooperative with more arrows in the quill, as they said. So it's like just having multiple tools for heating so that you can toggle between the multiple heating tools you have, whether that's kerosene, wood stove, and a heat pump, so that nothing's too expensive and you can moderate. Sorry, let me take over.
no, that's right. They were good, thoughtful group of people, intelligent, reasonable folks who are trying to solve the problem that the EPA is asking them to solve. I have been discussing with the company it's to get text alerts to instead of hitchhiking on the county system that changes all the time, to have our own text alert system to where we're notifying folks about moving your cars with imminent snow plowing and all the things that we should be texting. So that's just underway, and it's we've been negotiating. It's going to be pretty affordable, and once I get more information, we'll get you up to speed regarding that too. We have been, it's funny that you mentioned, Jim, the stuff you're mentioning, because I had a list of stuff that I thought that I would want to know more too. Just regarding, sometimes you take a breath and okay, step outside of our daily, what are the things that we're missing? We don't have a building planning, we don't have a planning, person in stock anymore. So we have things like lot line adjustment. We just finished. We collect $420 or something from someone doing a lot line adjustment and end up paying, I don't know how many thousands to independent consultant that is also a little busy, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And you can't just go change your fees to match an independent consultant fee. So we've been thinking about how do we get a part-time planner that is just an hourly rate that will do some of these ministerial things, lot line adjustments, mergers, and this and that.
Like Karen used to do.
Yeah, like Karen did. So that's in the works that we'll be bringing up to discuss at the council level. If it requires possibly putting on a part-time planner position, and we should see some savings and not having to consult out. And then there's some, other things that I'd like to talk about with the council to help with some local ordinances, whatever, to help with making housing affordable. Not the way the world does it that fits in the box, the way that it would work for the city of Portola. We've been doing a lot of work up at the Willow Springs, developing our water systems, wells, making sure that we're protecting our water rights and our systems. And I think Todd is gonna wanna do a little field trip sometime soon with some council members to show what the kind of work that we've been doing. Basically been having to remove a lot of tree root systems that's been clobbering the system, and water flow has been going from, mid 300s gallon per minute down to 2 something, and the culprit for the roots in the system.
Are we totally on water treatment plant, or are we getting some Cold Springs?
Totally on the treatment plant right now. But that's why we're,
Cold Springs in the west.
yes, yeah. That's it.
I have a question, John.
Yeah.
The leak down in front of the church, is that the last one that you guys?
That's the last one, and we're agonizing over how we're gonna do that one.
I know Todd talked to me about it a couple weeks ago, and he said he's really thinking about doing it at night, and because they're gonna have to close part of the road.
That's the last one. We hope,
I know people keep asking me when it's
Yeah.
gonna be fixed, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking.
and it's gonna be one that we have to actually close that road, tear up everything. There's fiber, we have to USA it and hope that it's accurate, because a lot of times it's not. So we're gonna have, it's gonna be a little more intrusive than before. We'll have to communicate with the PHC to make sure they know they gotta take a look. Yeah,
Just to piggyback on that question and that reply, I did speak with, the staff at the co-op today. And we had narrowed down that their leak at the back of their store is not on the city for once, but it is draining precipitously onto the street at the alley. And I talked with them, they said they talked with the owner's willing to fix it, but can't find anybody local
Mhm.
to do the digging. I made a couple suggestions of people in town, Little Will, I thought might do it. That other guy.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Berman. There's so many.
Yeah, I wondered how.
yeah, I'm not convinced
How hard
that
they would,
they've diligently tried.
yeah.
And I don't know if the city has to open up a plumbing enterprise outfit too. Maybe we can do work in charge. I don't know.
You know.
Yeah.
After this, but if it involves. City damages at the alley, it is degrading the,
Yeah.
base at least, along there.
Yeah, Todd and I actually talked about that particular leak yesterday, and we were
Yeah.
under the impression that they had been a little more diligent on trying to fix it, because we
Yeah.
troubleshot it a month and a half ago.
Yeah, so I'm not sure they are, but we'll push on it again and maybe write a letter from our staff to say either fix this or we'll fix it for you, and that'll probably cost you a whole bunch of money. So, because we need to balance our budget, we might as well do it on that auto, right? That's all I have. Thank you. Item 4, consent agenda. These items are usually non-controversial. And can be voted on at the same time. If anyone in the audience, staff member or council member has something you want to pull off of the agenda, they can do so at this time.
I have a couple questions
Okay,
about bill pays. Now, let's ask,
we can pull that off and answer it.
It's sort of the only item other than minutes, so.
Right.
Like-
That's, it's all right. Everybody just answer it.
I'm sorry, we're talking about some checks that were written?
I have a couple questions, Susan.
I don't have the backup. Oh,
Intermountain disposal, the ARPA, how much do we still have left?
oh, that's on my
That's on your. report.
financial review.
Okay, Liberty Energy, the charges for $15,900, what is that for?
That's all of the,
Streetlights?
I had to look at the bill, but all the things we pay.
It's a combination for all of the different
Mhm.
buildings and stuff. Okay, that answered that question. And. Maynard Consulting Planning Professionals, is that what you were talking about? That's the planner?
No, we don't have,
Who?
we don't have a new planner. I don't know what you're.
Oh, Manhart.
Manhart.
Oh,
okay.
Manhart,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's our
That's
consultant.
Karen, that's
Okay,
Karen.
that's
That's- yeah.
That's what I thought, okay, I think that was the only three I had questions about. All right, thank you.
Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar for claims resolution 2560.
Have a second?
That's a good.
We have a motion and a second, roll call please.
Councilmember Turner, sorry, I was all thinking about the minutes.
Yes.
Mayor, Councilmember Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Morton,
Yes.
Mayor Powers.
Yes, thank you. So passed. Item 5, the new state of emergency.
Minutes.
That was that motion did not include the minutes? You
I said for payment of claims, so
Okay.
I apparently not. I
want to revise your
Yes, I
motion?
advise to do the minutes and.
Okay.
But thanks.
So same motion first and roll call shall apply.
Yes,
So be.
okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I read your mind over there. Item 5, renewed state of emergency proclamation.
Okay, this is just the formality that we have to make sure that it's renewed every 60 days since we initially declared the emergency. And eventually we'll put it to bed and not have to do it anymore. But just one of the things you have to do on a timely fashion.
Okay, and this was the one that you referred to in your report.
Yes, yeah, that
The storm.
that caused our conversations with FEMA, oh, yes, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So hear any comments or anything from the public? No? Okay, council members, no? Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to accept the proclamation and reinstate it for another 60 days.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Turner,
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Morton,
Yes.
Mayor Powers.
Yes. Thank you. Item 6, fire service contract.
So this fire service contract, there will be a couple of amendments. You do your best proofreading once you hit send afterwards. This is basically the carbon copy of the contract that was already in place that expired last fiscal year. Because of the Measure E&F happening, if it passes in November, this won't be in play after the fiscal year's end and who knows what's going to happen. So there was no reason to do any major modifications to the contract. There was no reason to extend into some long terms. We're ready to pay our first installment as soon as we approve this contract. I'll go over a couple changes that I didn't catch in the beginning, but basically the only thing that we changed that you see are the dates to this fiscal year and the dollar amount. Under fees on page 2, I'm going to have to amend. So if we get a motion to approve, it'll be with the edits that I'm suggesting right now. The dates there, the effective July 2021, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down, that has to be changed, and the fees will be paid 2020. That time has passed. So I'll be changing those dates to make it relevant to this fiscal year. Otherwise, this is once we're approved here, we'll send it over to the fire department. They can sign and they can ratify in a future meeting, and we'll be compliant, at least for audit purposes and what we have to do. So
Okay, you said it would become null at the fiscal year, but E&F goes into effect January 1st.
yeah, but there's
Is there any?
most likely there won't be a hard transition from fire department to fire department. There's going to be a new board set up. They'll be discussing what needs to be done. They'll be probably establishing their budget, and they won't get any money anyway until
into April of 25.
Yeah.
because the
Or-
tax doesn't take effect
Yeah,
till
so,
the November.
we'll probably, Beckworth Fire will still probably be providing, not sure exactly how it's gonna work out, but there won't be a one day they're done and the others are, there'll be some transition to
I just wanted to
build.
ask that question
Yeah,
out loud. Any comments from the public? Seeing none? Any comments from the?
I have a couple questions.
Yes,
On appendix 1, let's see, it would be the third paragraph down, in addition to the reimbursement of costs of third-party services, fire district personnel, time associated with inspections, vehicle maintenance, repairs, miscellaneous fire station work is billed at a weighted rate of $45 for the fire chief at $45 an hour. And for the personnel at $25 an hour. Are we paying additional? Is this additional cost that we're paying on top of the 84,000 that they're getting?
theoretically, but I don't believe that's happened.
No. it doesn't.
This is a bunch of language that I'm sure that they worked out, the what ifs along. Probably even before,
But the
less
vehicles
cheap.
and the stations
Actually, it
are being
was-
maintained by us or by them?
they're responsible for making sure they're maintained. There are some things that we have paid for that were damaged, but not using these calculations. It's just a,
Okay. Okay, and then, fire district will provide monthly reports to Portola on the service calls. When Pat gives her service call, is that just for Portola? Okay. I know it says date, time, address, type of response,
Yeah, but you can't.
but you can't do that. I think that needs to be omitted. Where it says the fire district will provide a monthly report to Portola on the calls for service, which include the address, date, time, type of response, and its response times in Excel format. That's basically a HIPAA violation if we're not involved in the calls. So I think
I
that,
think you can put anything on there that people will hear over the radio transmission. Which is usually the date, the time.
the date's not on there, the time that they're dispatched is.
well, if it's worth anything, that's never happened since the formation of this contract.
That's why
anyway.
I think it needs to be omitted.
Okay.
So, and then.
What are we omitting?
Where- yeah.
The.
The detail.
The detail that says provide monthly reports on Portola calls, which include the address, date, time, type of response times in an Excel format too. If we're not getting it, then why is it in there? That's my question.
I think.
They won't.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I think the difference here when this contract was written is this was a report to the city manager. This part was not a report to the council.
I
and the
understand
public.
that. I
And
understand.
Steve Gross did read this and he did say that this information could go to the city manager.
And I agree with that, but if he's not getting that information,
I don't think anyone's ever been getting that information.
then it needs,
Right.
it should not be in the
No, I
contract.
agree.
Okay.
And then
Kinda how it
provide
happened.
monthly reports of status of equipment and fire stations. You and I did talk about this, you did say that you are getting that,
I get, when there are issues,
okay.
yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that the Beckworth Fire will have no problem omitting some of the provisions that require them to do this reporting.
That should be reported, but I think it also should be reported to us.
I guess we'll talk about the next agenda, because I don't know where,
Okay,
at what level you guys want information on a daily scope of work, so we'll, yeah, but for the contract.
Yeah.
Do you, so I get, so I'll
omit the
amend-
first bullet.
well, I'll change the language a little bit just to include what we've been getting, just the call reports, right? Is that okay with the council? And I'll exclude the other, provide a monthly report on the status of equipment and fire stations in the event there are problems, or because they don't.
Correct, yeah,
so-
something to that effect, so that we kind of have an idea of what's going on with the equipment, because it still does.
I mean, if there's a problem,
Yes,
And
Yes.
the initial inventory, great, and then after that, it's either gotta be, we need new equipment or something
There
broke
should
or?
be an initial inventory that was done when they first took over.
Mhm. And you probably, somebody has it, probably.
The biggest question that I have, with the fire equipment are the engines with, meeting all these new, EPA standards. We really need a lot of advance notice when we think a fire engine's not gonna be able to be used anymore.
Let's hope ENF passes.
Yeah.
So it's the fire departments, so they'll own it all. The new fire district.
Mhm. It's a very.
So if it doesn't, I can, if it doesn't pass. I can pretty much guarantee that we're gonna have to come back and really discuss this contract because Beckworth's not happy with it anyway.
Yeah,
I have a question on page 2. What was last year's fee? This year's fee?
It's
78, 77,
right, I don't have it on me, but I think it was 70, oh, yeah. I got
and
it.
this figure is derived from taking into consideration the
Just a COLA.
COLA increases that,
so last year was.
I believe it's 78.
78, 723.94. Oh,
There you go.
no, there's something else in there with 78.
Yeah, so that's what we told, we really paid, not the 84,000.
Yeah, the
84 is this year.
Oh, this year, this is what we
Mhm.
paid last year.
Yeah.
Got it, thank you.
and this starts in July of this year, a few months ago.
But the checks come
Twice, yeah.
twice a year, and they haven't gotten a check yet. for this
Right.
year.
Because we
We were
don't
waiting for
contract.
this.
Yeah. So let me,
And we did budget 84.
Thank you.
so let me double check. I'm gonna make my edits that I suggested for the dates. We're going to. On page 5, the bottom fire district I will change the first bullet point to just the reports that they're giving. I will change the second bullet point to, I'll come up with the language tomorrow, in the morning. Where the brain is a little more rested, in the event that there are issues with any of the equipment, immediately report to the city.
Thank you.
Is that what? Okay. And was there anything else?
Good. So I will entertain a motion. No, so public comment. I did it earlier before we started this. Any public comment? On the fire contract? Thank you. Yes, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract renewal for services with Beckwood Fire Department. For the 23-24 year in the amount of $84,000
With edits.
with edits.
I'll second that.
Yeah, a motion and second. Roll call please.
Councilmember Turner,
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Morton,
Yes.
Mayor Powers.
Yes. So carried. Item 7, review the 6/30/23 year and including budget amendments and set asides. I believe you have a staff contract number here. Contract and staff, well, whatever.
Whatever I am.
It's
It's my 25th anniversary with the city and
all right, congratulations.
it's all Murphy's fault.
You don't sleep in the council papers like last night.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Before I go through this, just a quick update on our audit for the year. As you know, accounts payable and accounts receivable that apply to the prior fiscal year we have to look at those through August. So that was done and our audit field work is already completed. I've completed the audit field work with the auditors last week. They're working on their review. They'll get me a draft by Friday. I'll review the draft, write the management discussion analysis with the city manager. And then they have all their other reviews that they have to do, their quality control reviews and all that. Expect issuance to be maybe the end of October, possibly the 1st of November, depending on how their things. They've already told me that they don't really see anything, which, you know, I certainly hope not. We will be discussing the requirements for GASB 96, which are the SaaS fees, the software as a service fees, because there were new requirements on that. But we can talk about that when we finally get, I'm not sure how that's gonna be worded, is what I'm trying to say. It's a very interesting contract that we have with Encode that after this first 3-year commitment to SaaS fees, they go year to year, but if you don't pay it, you can't use their software. But other than that, it's really great stuff. Anyway, so just a little update on the audit. So as those of you who have been on the council and in other positions know, we kind of go over this every year. There are codes, there are categories, funds, accounts that we have that we don't really have a budget for. Well, it's not that we don't have a budget for at the beginning, we just don't really know how that project's going to go. And one of those things is North Loop, as you know. We never know if it's going to be $10,000 in the city engineer's time or 2 million like this summer. So at the end of the year, I kind of clean up those things. And these are all things that the council has either reviewed, approved earlier, discussed. So if it's okay with you, I'll just kind of go down through them. And I apologize for having 730 in the middle of all the 100s there on the first page. Obviously, I wasn't paying attention to that. So the first thing on here is just the PG&E use of settlement funds. And we just didn't have an original budget on that. So the budget amendment was 35,000, and that was approved by the council on December of 22. The less G, the additional $20,000 that was approved by the council for less G was done on November 15th, 22. So those were things that were council approval already. The interest income is the fact that while it's bad for a lot of people, a better interest rate is really good for us. The original budget for interest income in the general fund was 5,000, and we came in close to 40 something. So I budgeted 50. So we put 50,000 in here. The next thing down, which is out of line here, is the SB 1383 grant, which, as you know, is that organic waste reduction. We got money from the state on that. So that's unanticipated. And then the amount that we've expended of that grant so far is 3,500. So that's money that we have. We have that money, the rest of the money sitting there for use. If it's not used by April of next year, we have to return it. I've had that conversation with the city manager and with our consultant, Tom Valentino, and he thinks that there are so few people who are able at the moment to use those funds that deadline might be extended.
Is that for green waste?
No, it's for food waste.
Food waste.
Yeah. Keeping food waste out of the landfills. And this is mostly for the education of it. It's not like there's money there to actually do something, you know.
Is IMD working on that? Or is it up to?
I don't think anyone really knows right now.
I believe Leonard's is really the only actual store or business that is sort of subject to the 1383.
Oh, it doesn't apply to residents.
Some restaurant, no.
What about schools?
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Senior nutrition?
You know, that would be a good Tom Valentino
Question.
question for him to answer for you guys. And we'll get him on Zoom.
Well, we can pay him.
And he get paid out of this.
Money.
As a matter of fact, it's Tom Valentino's time that the only expenditures on this so far, so.
It's another piece of legislation that Tom and I at least determined that not very well thought out, and who knows what good it's going to do.
And so many of these things, as you guys know, are just so much harder for small cities. You know, we're expected to comply with the same regulations of Los Angeles or somewhere else.
Yeah, that's just like recycling.
You know. Yeah. The next thing on here is the ARPA money, or the coronavirus fiscal recovery funds. And with what we've spent so far this year, it looks like we have about 160,000 left. The city manager and I were talking earlier about having this, and we could certainly do it on the next agenda to discuss what we're going to do with the rest of those funds, if we're going to, because now, you know, it's not like we're getting down there. We had over 400,000, and we still have about 160. But I think that it's time to take a look at that and see what we want to do with the rest of those funds. We had talked about the purchase of the La Jolla Loans properties. That's, the council's approved that. It's still at the county.
We don't know what the cost is gonna be yet.
But it's not huge.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Should be less than the dog park. Actually, it should be. If it comes out like we're hoping.
So I think at this point now, with what we have left, it's time for the council to revisit that. The initial approval was back in April of last year to do the city community cleanup. And so we'll be taking a look at that. So this is how much money was spent in the 22-23 year. And the next one down is just the event income from camping. Just don't put that in normally at the beginning of the budget, because we just really, for a couple of years there, we didn't even have the event. So that's just adding that in. The next one is SB2 grant reimbursement. The SB2 and the LEAP grants were originally approved back in November of 2019. And this was the funds from the prior year coming in. The next one down was a reimbursement from the Williams House Historical Society. So a lot of these are just reimbursements. The Riverwalk paving project, it took quite a few years to get it actually done, but it was done during this year. And the Transportation Commission reimbursed us at $27,756. So that was a good use of some funds through the Transportation Commission. The next one, once again, is SB2 and LEAP. Those are grant funded. We have reimbursement requests into the state for this. And this is the final week to get any invoices in. And so Karen Downs and staff have been working on making sure that we're in compliance. Everything has to be done. The odd part of the whole thing is that you can spend the money even this week, but you have to have all the invoices and the reimbursement into them by this week. So that's a little confusing.
Okay.
It's just government. The next one is the use of AVA funds, the abandoned vehicle abatement. As you know, was put on hold for quite a while. We still had $12,000 on our balance sheet from AVA funds that we had gotten over time. And so this year we had plenty of AVA tows that qualified, so we could use up the rest of those. I've been in contact with Heidi Whiteman, and we are getting those funds again. They have to come through the county auditor's office, so I'll leave it at that.
How much are we getting per car now?
Back from them? Oh, I don't know. It's not very much. I mean, I think this check coming back to us is like $2,200.
Okay.
So, but hopefully there'll be a little accounting with that. You know, I know what I've sent Heidi, and the next one is actually really is a request for additional budget, which was snow removal personnel. We talked during the year about just how crazy the snow removal was and how much more it cost us. So this was actually a request for 116,000 additional in budget and to transfer out of streets and snow. We get a half of that back from the state. Street reports due in December, but I've already got it completed. I'm just waiting for the auditors to finish so I can fire it off, make sure they didn't have any changes to that. Or it wouldn't be to that, but to the books. North Loop, this was how much was received and spent in that fiscal year, 100% reimbursed by the state. We are at the moment waiting for reimbursement on a lot of money.
Susan, can I ask a question about the snow removal?
Sure.
We budgeted originally 86,000.
Mhm.
The first amendment was for 116,000.
No, that's the only one.
That is it, okay, so the 202,812 is the combination of the two.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At the top of the next page, I just put a couple things, every year, even though I keep track of budget amendments and things like that all year long, I always go back through all the minutes. Because I know the auditors are gonna go back through all the minutes. And the only other things I really touched on were the interim city manager contract was approved during this year. There was an approval for additional compensation for me, but that was for public records requests. And I'm gonna knock on wood and hope that I don't jinx the whole thing, but I haven't had to do those since last fall.
Why can't the city manager contract be volunteer?
You're hilarious.
If you see my books for what I'm losing in Ukiah, it might be. about
I don't know, Jim, we could have said that to you back then. And the part here on the relocation during the Kronberg rehab project was relocation of pipes. And we had to commit during the, like, at that meeting, that we would do that we would replace those pipes underneath. The estimate at the time was about $120,000. It's something I can really budget because it might not happen for a few more years, but I want to keep this on here, so.
Is that where Todd came and was telling us that the pipes need to be lowered or raised or something?
Right.
Yeah.
Up there.
Right.
And that's down Highway 70.
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Through the middle of town.
Depreciation, I don't do the depreciation schedules until the end of the year. I never know when I'm gonna move out of fixed assets into just repairs, maintenance, whatever. So this is just what the depreciation and fixed asset offset is for the year. And then just for your information, I put in what the LSG partner balances are. We have funneled the money for LSG through the city for the entities. And at the moment, the partner balances that we hold are 11,463. Our balance of what we committed is 7,000. That money hasn't gone anywhere. It's just with us. That's just how much more if we needed it. I'm gonna do the landfill closure and then hit on the infrastructure set aside. So every year we take whatever money comes in for landfill closure and we earmark it for future closure. And partly because the state of California wants us to either do a pledge of revenue, which honestly I'm not comfortable with. We've talked about it before, or we put money aside. And so with the council's approval, we've been putting money aside toward what the estimate was to do a big replacement on the cap. So looks good right now. I think we continue to do this. We look at it every year during the budget and see if that's something we want to continue doing. And then, of course, we've been reducing the landfill closure fees as we feel comfortable. A few years ago, it was 116,000. This year, it's 95. A few years ago, we talked about putting aside in an infrastructure set aside for water and sewer, the difference between what we budgeted in system improvements, in fixed assets, and what we actually spent. I didn't do it this year for a couple of reasons. One was that we have a change in and what we're gonna be doing in terms of like sludge removal. So we have 90,000 in the 23-24 budget, budgeted for sludge removal. Under system improvements, which is an asset, that's not where it's gonna go from now on. It's gonna be repair and maintenance. I had a long conversation with the auditors about it. They agree that it really isn't a fixed asset, but that's where it's been posted in the past. So that 90,000 that we currently have budgeted for sludge removal is gonna move to just a repair and maintenance. So and then for this year, we only had two things under the fixed assets. One was $10,000 for fire hydrants, and the other was an $8,000 piece of equipment. And I just think that's a topic that set aside that we should look at again, because the more money we accumulate in there, the more that we're gonna have to look at making that a restricted account and not just a set aside. So there was just not a big enough amount that I thought we should do it this year. And it really doesn't matter, the money's either in the checking account or it's in, set aside. But I do think that we should take some time to talk about that, especially during the budget process this year, and see if that's something we really want to continue doing, or if we have another theory on how to make sure that we have money set aside like that. So anyway, that's pretty much, I had one other thing on this year's budget, which is we had $10,000 budgeted for underground storage tank, and I believe we are going to be able to take that out of the budget. So at mid-year, I think I can remove that, which does hit the general fund, so.
What kind of a storage tank was it for?
It was a storage tank down at the end of,
Fuel oil.
yes.
Fuel oil?
Right at the far end of west end of Commercial Street.
It needed to be removed, is that what I remember?
And
We keep finding those. During my time, we had to remove one too.
that's the same one.
Same one.
Same one?
Same one, this was the testing they made us do for years. But I think they're done.
So it needs to be removed, or we can leave it because it passed.
No, I think it was.
So the history. The first gas station in the city of Portola was down at that corner. And the roads were dirt then, and they dug a big hole and put that tank in. Right there, where Commercial Street takes a turn, and the building there at the end across from the monument was the oil.
Don't look at me.
Oil, whatever.
Green and
Free would do, yeah. And they ended up putting their, so now when we work on Commercial Street, we have to worry about the storage tank on our property that they put in.
Okay.
wherever.
So,
No, I think that-
so it can't,
We're over it now.
it can't be removed, or we don't want
It's
to.
removed.
It was removed. And now testing soil.
Soil testing.
Yeah, it's
And-
well,
and
Thanks for clarifying.
It should be done and they put that to bed.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
got
we're
it.
fine.
And that brought up the other part, which is landfill test wells.
Yeah.
And do we get a report back? Are any of those changing in their test results? Are we getting any cleaner? Are we?
I think that's another Tom Valentino question, another good reason for him to
Yeah.
have a chat.
Okay,
I have a question about the ARP, the 170K, the $170,000 funds for the COVID relief funds.
Mhm.
Anyway, you talked about purchasing a building. What building did you say that?
No, it's not a building, it's land.
Land,
Mhm.
okay, and where is it?
Up off of West Road,
It's up West Street between Quincy and Loyalton. There's that big empty lot that was supposed to be a housing project.
it's already developed, it's got infrastructure and it's
Right, so like hydrants and.
And it fits,
water. sewer.
and it fits very well with some of the uses of the ARPA funding in the 436 page.
The, originally, Mickey, that was purchased by La Jolla or owned by La Jolla Loans, and they were gonna build houses there.
Okay.
And something happened, and now La Jolla Loans has defaulted on all that property.
Well, actually, before
La Jolla
that,
Loans-
it-
Even
Lender.
before that. What was
Yeah,
They
that?
were the lender, they were.
They were
the-
the lender, I'm sorry. They have, it's all been.
Doug Hour.
Yeah, it's got a, it's a dugout.
Doug Howard.
Okay, well, I kind of remember
It-
from,
It was just default after default after.
Yes, they ended up owning some.
So we would actually be buying this in a tax, and is it tax lien?
it's a
with-
tax lien and
Right.
we'll be paying off.
Where he was gonna put his propane tanks in our, our street. Terrible for stopping a stop work order.
So that's all I have. Do you have any questions of me or? Public comments?
I think you answered the one question that I was having, so.
Any other questions from our audience?
I am looking for approval of the budget amendments and set asides before you.
And we'll read on that one.
I will make the motion to approve the budget amendments.
Set aside.
Set aside. I'll second.
I have a motion in a second. Let's do one more roll call just for the good of the order.
Councilmember Turner,
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy, Mayor Pro Tem Morton,
Yes.
Mayor Powers.
Yes, thank you. And with that, our regular meeting of the Portola City Council is adjourned at 7:05.
5. Oh, 5 on the dot.
Thank you again, Nikki.
Thank you all, yeah.
John, can we